strings. And wherever you looked, you could see people tightening girths, putting on helmets, drawing swords, and throwing cloaks at the ground. There was hardly any talking now. It was very solemn and very dreadful. In for it now. I am in for it now, thought Shasta. Then there came noises far ahead, the sound of many men shouting, and a steady thud, thud, thud. Glittering ram, whispered Corin. They're battering the gate. Even Corin looked quite serious now. Why doesn't King Edward get on? He said. I can't stand this waiting about. Cherry too. Shasta nodded, hoping he didn't look as frightened as he felt. The trumpet at last. On the move now trotting, the banner streaming out in the wind. They had topped a low ridge now, and below them the whole scene suddenly opened out. A little, many-towered castle with its gate toward them. No moat, unfortunately, but of course the gate shut and the portcullis down. On the walls they could see, like little white dots, the faces of the defenders. Down below, about 50 of the Calormans, dismounted, were steadily swinging a great tree trunk against the gate. At once the scene changed. The main bulk of Rabadash's men had been on foot ready to assault the gate. But now he had seen the Narnians sweeping down from the ridge. There is no doubt those Calormans are wonderfully trained. It seemed to Shasta only a second before a whole line of the enemy were on horseback again, wheeling round to meet, swinging toward him. And now a gallop. The ground between the two armies grew less every moment. Faster, faster. All swords out now, all shields up to the nose, all prayers said, all teeth clenched. Shasta was dreadfully frightened. But it suddenly came into his head, if you funk this, you'll funk every battle of your life, now or never. And when at last the two lines met, he had really very little idea of what happened. There was a frightful confusion and an appalling noise. His sword was knocked clean out of his hand pretty soon, and he got the reins tangled somehow. Then he found himself slipping. Then a spear came straight at him, and as he ducked to avoid it, he rolled right off his horse, bashed his left knuckles terribly against someone else's armor, and then... But it is no use trying to describe the battle from Shasta's point of view. He understood too little of the fight in general, and even of his own part in it. The best way I can tell you what really happened is to take you some miles away to where the hermit of the Southern March sat gazing into the smooth pool beneath the spreading tree, with Bree and Wynne and Aravis beside him. For it was in this pool that the hermit looked when he wanted to know what was going on in the world outside the green walls of his hermitage. There, as in a mirror, he could see, at certain times, what was going on in the streets of cities far farther south than Tashbar, or what ships were putting into Redhaven in the remote Seven Isles, or what robbers or wild beasts stirred in the great western forests between Lantern Waste and Telmar. And all this day, he had hardly left his pool, even to eat or drink, for he knew that great events were afoot in Arkanland.
Should have cleaned the windshield.
Aravis and the horses gazed into it too. They could see it was a magic pool. Instead of reflecting the tree and the sky, it revealed cloudy and coloured shapes moving, always moving in its depths. But they could see nothing clearly. The hermit could, and from time to time he told them what he saw. A little while before Shasta rode into his first battle, the hermit had begun speaking like this. I see one, two,
Made it worse.
in the gap by Stormness Head. One is the oldest of all of the eagles. He would not be out unless battle was at hand. I see him wheel to and fro, peering down sometimes at Anvar, and sometimes to the east, behind Stormness. I see now what Rabadash and his men have been so busy at all day. They have felled and lopped a great tree. They are now coming out of the woods, carrying it as a ram. They have learned something from the failure of last night's assault. He would have been wiser if he had set his men to making ladders. It takes too long, and he is impatient. Fool that he is. He ought to have ridden back to Tashbarn as soon as the first attack failed, for his whole plan depended on speed and surprise. Now they are bringing their ram into position. King Loon's men are shooting hard from the walls. 5 Calormines have fallen, but not many will. They have their shields above their heads. Rabadash is giving his orders now. With him are his most trusted lords, fierce Tarkans from the eastern province. His sword, always remember it now, He's waving it wildly about. Nearly cut his own pony's head off, and he will in a moment if he's not careful. It's been knocked out of his hand now. It's mere murder sending a child into the battle. He can't live 5 minutes
river?
stuck here. Oh, he's down. Asked 3 voices breathlessly. How can I tell?
Oh well.
Said the whole. Killets have done their work. All the riderless horses are dead or escaped now. No retreat for the Colombians on them. Now the cats are turning back into the main battle. They're leaping on the ram's men. The ram is down. Good. The gates are opening from the inside. There's going to be a sortie. The first 3 are out. It's King Loon in the middle. The brothers Dard and Darren on each side of him. Behind them are Tran and Shah and Cole with his brother Colin. There are 10, 20, nearly 30 of them out by now. The Colombian line is being forced back upon them. King Edmund is dealing marvelous strokes. He's just slashed Colin's head off. Lots of Colombians have thrown down their arms and are running for the woods. Those that remain are hard-pressed. The giants are closing in on the right. Cats on the left. King Loon from their rear. The Colombians are a little knot now, fighting back to back. Your Tarkan's down, Bree. Loon and Azru are fighting hand to hand. King looks like winning. The king is keeping it up well. The king has won. Azru's down. King Edmund's down.
Oh, no.
He's at it with Rabadash. They're fighting in the very gates of the castle. Several Colombians have surrendered. Darren has killed Ilgamuth. Can't see what's happened to Rabadash. I think she's dead. Leaning against the castle wall, but I don't know. Clamash and King Edmund are still fighting, but the battle is over everywhere else. Clamash has surrendered. The battle is over. The Colombians are utterly defeated. When Shasta fell off his horse, he gave himself up for lost. But horses, even in battle, tread on human beings very much less than you would suppose. After a very horrible 10 minutes or so, Shasta realized suddenly that there were no longer any horses stamping about in the immediate neighborhood, and that the noise, for there were still a good many noises going on, was no longer that of a battle. He sat up and stared about him. Even he, little as he knew of battles, could soon see that the avalanches and Narnians had won. The only living Colombians he could see were prisoners. The castle gates were wide open, and King Loon and King Edmund were shaking hands across the battering ram. From the circle of lords and warriors around them, there arose a sound of breathless and excited, but obviously cheerful conversation. And then, suddenly, it all united and swelled into a great roar of laughter. Shasta picked himself up, feeling uncommonly stiff, and ran toward the sound to see what the joke was. A very curious sight met his eyes. The unfortunate Rabadash appeared to be suspended from the castle walls. His feet, which were about 2 feet from the ground, were kicking wildly. His chain shirt was somehow hitched up so that it was horribly tight under the arms and came halfway over his face. In fact, he looked just as a man looks if you catch him in the very act of getting into a stiff shirt which is a little too small for him. As far as could be made out afterward, and you may be sure the story was well talked over for many a day, what happened was something like this. Early in the battle, one of the giants had made an unsuccessful stamp at Rabadash with his spiked boot. Unsuccessful because it didn't crush Rabadash, which was what the giant had intended, but not quite useless because one of the spikes tore the chainmail, just as you or I might tear an ordinary shirt. So Rabadash, by the time he encountered Edmund at the gate, had a hole in the back of his horse. And when Edmund pressed him back nearer and nearer to the wall, he jumped up on a mounting block and stood there, raining down blows on Edmund from above. But then, finding that his position, by raising him above the heads of everyone else,
just
saved
a little
for
avalanche.
every arrow from the Narnian bows, he decided to jump down again. And he meant to look and sound, no doubt for a
Trees
moment he
broken
did look
off
and
down
sound
there.
very grand and very dreadful as he jumped, crying, "The bolt of Tash falls from above." But he had to jump sideways because the crowd in front of him left him no landing place in that direction. And then, in the neatest way you would wish, the tear in the back of his hawbuck caught on a hook in the wall. Ages ago, this hook had a ring in it for tying horses to. And there he found himself, like a piece of washing hung up to dry, with everyone laughing at him. "Let me down, Edmund," howled Rabadash. "Let me down and fight me like a king and a man. Or if you are too great a coward to do that, kill me at once." "Certainly," began King Edmund. But King Loon interrupted.
By your majesty's good leave,
Said King Loon to Edmund.
not so.
Then turning to Rabbadash, he said,
Your Royal Highness, if you had given that challenge a week ago, I'll answer for it there was no one in King Edmund's dominion, from the High King down to the smallest talking mouse, who would have refused it. But by attacking our castle of Anbard in time of peace without defiant send, you have proved yourself no knight, but a traitor, and one rather to be whipped by the hangman to be suffered to cross swords with any person of honor.
Spot there.
Take him down, bind him, and carry him within till our pleasure is further known.
strong hands wrenched Rabadash's sword from him, and he was carried away into the castle, shouting, threatening, cursing, and even crying. For though he could have faced torture, he couldn't bear being made ridiculous. In Tashban, everyone had always taken him seriously. At that moment, Corin ran up to Shasta, seized his hand, and started dragging him toward King Loon. Here he is, father! Here he is! Cried Corin.
And here thou art at last.
Said the king in a very gruff voice.
Interesting.
And hast been in the battle, clean contrary to your obedience. Boy, to break a father's heart. At your age, a rod to your breech were fitter than a sword in your face, ha?
But everyone, including Corin, could see that the king was very proud of him. Chide him no more, sire, please you, said Lord Darren. His Highness would not be your son if he did not inherit your conditions. It would grieve your majesty more if he had to be reproved for the opposite fault.
Well, grumbled the king. Pass it over for this time. And now,
What came next surprised Shasta as much as anything that had ever happened to him in his life. He found himself suddenly embraced in a bear-like hug by King Loon and kissed on both cheeks. Then the king set him down again and said,
stand here together, boys, and let all the court see. Hold up your heads. Now, gentlemen, look on them both. Has any man any doubts?
And still Shasta could not understand why everyone stared at him and at Corin, nor what all the cheering was about. Chapter 14. How Bree became a wiser horse. We must now return to Aravis and the horses.
In 1,000 feet, you will arrive at your destination.
Thank you.
The hermit, watching his pool, was able to tell them that Shasta was not killed or even seriously wounded, for he saw him get up and saw how affectionately he was greeted by King Loon. But as he could only see, not hear, he did not know what anyone was saying, and once the fighting had stopped and the talking had begun, it was not worthwhile looking in the pool any longer.
You have arrived.
Thank you.
Next morning, while the hermit was indoors, the three of them discussed what they should do next. I've had enough of this, said Wynne. The hermit has been very good to us, and I'm very much obliged to him, I'm sure. But I'm getting as fat as a pet pony, eating all day and getting no exercise. Let's go on to Narnia.
Oh, not today, Mum,
said Bree.
I wouldn't hurry things. Some other day, don't you think?
We must see Shasta first and say goodbye to him, and apologize, said Aravis.
Exactly,
Said Bree with great enthusiasm.
just what I was going to say.
Oh, of course, said Wynne. I expect he is in Akvar. Naturally, we'd look in on him and say goodbye. But that's on our way. And why shouldn't we start at once? After all, I thought it was Narnia we all wanted to get to. I suppose so, said Aravis. She was beginning to wonder what exactly she would do when she got there, and was feeling a little lonely.
Of course, said Bree hastily. But there's no need to rush things, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't know what you mean, said Wynne. Why don't you want to go?
Muttered Bree. Well, don't you see, Mum? It's an important occasion. Returning to one's country, entering society, the best society. It is so essential to make a good impression. Not perhaps looking quite ourselves yet, eh?
Wynne broke out into a hoarse laugh. It's your tail, Bree. I see it all now. You want to wait till your tail's grown again. And we don't even know if tails are worn long in Narnia. Really, Bree, you're as vain as that Tarkina in Tashban. You are silly, Bree. said Aravis. My name, Tarkina, I'm nothing of the sort, said Bree indignantly. I have a proper respect for myself and for my fellow horses,
I
that's
think
all.
I'm on the wrong side.
Bree, said Aravis, who was not very interested in the cut of his tail. I've been wanting to ask you something for a long time. Why do you keep on swearing by the lion's mane? I thought you hated lions. So I do, answered Bree. But when I speak of lion, of course I mean Aslan,
Got
the
a
great
hole in it.
deliverer of Narnia, who drove away the witch of the winter. All Narnians swear by him. But is he a lion? No, of course not, said Bree in a rather shocked voice. All the stories about him in Tashban say he is, replied Aravis. And if he isn't a lion, why do you call him a lion? Well, you'd hardly understand that at your age, said Bree. And I was only a little fool then, so I don't quite fully understand it myself. Bree was standing with his back to the green wall while he said this, and the other two were facing him. He was talking in rather a superior tone with his eyes half shut. That was why he didn't see the changed expression in the faces of Hwyn and Aravis. They had good reason to have open mouths and staring eyes, because while Bree spoke, they saw an enormous lion leap up from outside and balance itself on the top of the green wall. Only it was a brighter yellow, and it was bigger and more beautiful and more alarming than any lion they had ever seen. And at once it jumped down inside the wall and began approaching Bree from behind. It made no noise at all, and Hwyn and Aravis couldn't make any noise themselves, no more than if they were frozen. No doubt, continued Bree, when they speak of him as a lion, they only mean he's as strong as a lion, or, to our enemies, of course, as fierce as a lion, or something of that kind. Even a little girl like you, Aravis, must see it would be quite absurd to suppose he is a real lion. Indeed, it would be disrespectful. If he was a lion, he'd have to be a beast, just like the rest of us. Why? And here Bree began to laugh. If he was a lion, he'd have 4 paws and a tail and whiskers. Help! Just as he said the word whiskers, one of Aslan's had actually tickled his ear. Bree shot away like an arrow to the other side of the enclosure and there turned. The wall was too high for him to jump, and he could fly no further.
Water looks delicious.
Aravis and Hwyn both started back. There was about a second of intense silence.
Hey, look at
Then
that.
Hwyn, shaking all over, gave a strange little neigh and trotted across to the lion. Please, she said, you're so beautiful. You may eat me if you like. I'd sooner be eaten by you than fed by anyone else. Dearest daughter, said Aslan, planting a lion's kiss on her twitching velvet nose. I knew you would not be long in coming to me. Joy shall be yours. Then he lifted his head and spoke in a louder voice. Now, Bree,
Holy
he
hell.
said, you
Nice
poor,
avalanche.
proud, frightened horse.
Yep.
Draw near. Nearer still, my son. Do not dare not to dare. Touch me. Smell me. Here are my paws. Here is my tail. These are my whiskers. I am a true beast. Aslan, said Bree in a shaken voice. I'm afraid I must be rather a fool. Happy the horse who knows that while he is still young. Or the human either. Draw near, Aravis, my daughter. See, my
There's a
paws
nice
are
one, too.
velvety.
Yeah.
You will not
Nice
be torn
avalanche
this
spot.
time. This time, sir, said Aravis. It was I who met you. I am the only lion you met in all your journeys. Do you know why I tore you? No, sir. The scratches on your back, tear for tear, throb for throb, blood for blood, were equal to the stripes laid on the back
Look at
of your
that.
stepmother's slave because of the drugged sleep you cast upon her. You needed to know what it felt like. Yes, sir. Please. Ask on, my dear, said Aslan. Any more harm come to her by what I did? Child, said the lion, I am telling you your story, not hers. One is told any story. Then he shook his head and spoke in a lighter voice. Be merry, little ones. he said. We shall meet again soon. Before that, you will have another visitor. Then in one bound he reached the top of the wall and vanished from their sight. Strange to say, they felt no inclination to talk to one another about him after he had gone. They all moved slowly away to different parts of the quiet grass, and there paced to and fro, each alone, thinking. About half an hour later, the two horses were summoned to the back of the house to eat something nice that the hermit had got ready for them, and Aravis, still walking and thinking, was startled by the harsh sound of a trumpet outside the gate. "Who is there?" asked Aravis. "His Royal Highness
Hope I
Prince
got
Cor
that
of
little
Arkland,"
waterfall.
said a voice from outside.
Excuse
Aravis
me.
undid the door and opened it, drawing back a little way to let the strangers in. Two soldiers with halberds came first and took their stand at each side of the entry. Then followed a herald and the trumpeter. "His Royal Highness Prince Cor of Arkland desires an audience of the Lady Aravis," said the herald. Then he and the trumpeter drew aside and bowed, and the soldiers saluted, and the prince himself came in. All his attendants withdrew and closed the gate behind them. The prince bowed, and a very clumsy bow for a prince it was. Aravis curtsied in the colonial style, which is not at all like ours, and did it very well because, of course, she had been taught how. Then she looked up and saw what sort of person this prince was. She saw a mere boy. He was bareheaded, and his fair hair was encircled with a very thin band of gold, hardly thicker than a wire. His upper tunic was of white cambric, as fine as a handkerchief, so that the bright red tunic beneath it showed through. His left hand, which rested on his enamelled sword hilt, was bandaged. Aravis looked twice at his face before she gasped, and said, "Why, it's Shasta." Shasta, all at once, turned very red and began speaking very quickly. "Look here, Aravis," he said. "I do hope you won't think I've got up like this at the trumpeter in order to try to impress you or make out that I'm different or any rot of that sort, because I'd far rather have come in my old clothes, but they're burnt now. My father said..." "Your father?" said Aravis. "Apparently King Lou is my father," said Shasta. "I might really have guessed it, Corrie being so like me. We were twins, you see. Oh, my name isn't Shasta. It's Cor." "Cor is a nicer name than Shasta," said Aravis. "Brothers' names run like that in Arkland," said Shasta, or Prince Cor, as we must now call him. "Like Dar, Darren, Cole, Colin, and so on." "Shasta, I mean Cor," said Aravis. "No, shut up. There's something I've got to say at once. I'm sorry I've been such a pig. But I did change before I knew you were Prince, honestly. When you went back and faced the lion. It wasn't really going to kill you at all, that lion," said Cor. "No," said Aravis, nodding. Both were still and solemn for a moment, as each saw that the other knew about Aslan. Suddenly Aravis remembered Cor's bandaged hand. "Say," she cried, "I forgot. You've been in a battle. Is that a wound?" "A mere scratch," said Cor, using for the first time a rather courtly tone. But a moment later he burst out laughing and said, "If you want to know the truth, it isn't a proper wound at all. I only took the skin off my knuckles, just as any clumsy fool might do without going near a battle." "Still, you were in the battle," said Aravis. "It must have been different." "It wasn't at all like that before," said Cor. "But Shannon, Cor, you haven't told me anything yet about King Louis."
Any wonder there's avalanches?
"Well, let's sit down," said Cor, "for it's rather a long story. Look at my father's absolute prick. I'd be just as pleased, very nearly, at finding he's my father, even if he weren't a king. Even though education and all sorts of horrible things are going to happen to me. But you want the story? Well, Corin and I are twins. And about a week after we were both born, apparently, they took us to a wise old centaur in the garden to be blessed or something. Now, this centaur was a prophet, as a good many centaurs are. Perhaps you haven't seen any centaurs yet. There were some in the battle yesterday. It's remarkable people. I can't say I feel so quite at home with them yet. I say, Aravis, there are going to be a lot of things to get used to in these northern countries. "Yes, there are," said Aravis. "The story. Well, as soon as he saw Corin, it seems the centaur looked at me and said, the day will come when that boy will save Arkland from the deadliest danger in which ever she lay. So, of course, my father and mother were very pleased.
but there was someone present who wasn't. This was a chap called Lord Barr, who would be Father's Lord Chancellor, and apparently he'd done something wrong, embezzling, or somewhere like that. I didn't understand that part very well, and Father had to dismiss him. But nothing else was done to him, and he was allowed to go on living in Arkham. But he must have been as bad as he could be, for it came out after he'd been in the play of the Tisrock, and had sent a lot of secret information
tree
to
got
British Band.
broken on.
So as soon as he heard I was going to save Arkham from a great danger, he decided I must be put out of the way. Well, he succeeded in kidnapping me. I don't exactly know how. I rode away down the winding arrow to the coast. He had everything prepared. There was a ship manned with his own followers, lying ready for him, and he put out to sea with me on board. But Father, though not quite in time, and was after him as quickly as he could. The Lord Barr was already at sea when Father reached the coast, but not out of sight. My father was embarked in one of his own warships within 20 minutes. It must have been a wonderful chase. They were 6 days following Barr's galleon and brought her to battle on the 7th. It was a great sea fight. I heard a lot about it yesterday evening, but from 10 o'clock in the morning until sunset. Our people took the ship in the end, but I wasn't there. The Lord Barr himself had been killed in the battle. But one of his men said that early that morning, as soon as he saw he was certain to be overboard, Barr had given me to one of his knights and sent us both away in the ship's boat. And that boat was never seen again. And of course, that was the same boat that Aslan. He seemed to be in the back of all of the stories. Pushed ashore at the right place for our sheep to pick me
I
up.
roll up one of the windows.
Wish I knew that
It's
knight's
just a
name.
tad chilly.
He must have kept me alive and starved himself to do it. I suppose Aslan would say that was part of someone
I don't
else's
know why.
story, said Aravis. I was forgetting that, said Cor. I wonder how the prophecy will work out, said Aravis. What the great danger is that you're to save Arkham from. Well, said Cor rather awkwardly. I seem to think I've done it already. Aravis clapped her hands. Why, of course, she said. How stupid I am. And how wonderful. Arkham could never be in much greater danger than it was when Rabadash had crossed the Arrow with his 200 horse, and you hadn't yet got through with your
Just-
message. Don't you feel proud?
A waterfall.
I think I feel a bit scared, said Cor.
It's alright.
Said Aravis, rather wistfully.
What are you gonna do?
Oh,
Look around the corner
said
and find
Cor.
a waterfall.
I'd nearly forgotten what I came about. Father wants you to come and live with us. He says there's been no lady in the court. They call it the court, I don't know why. Since Mother died. Do, Aravis. You're like Father.
Come
And
Surrey.
Corin. They're not like me. They've been properly
You're
brought up.
not so hot.
You needn't be afraid of stupid
What?
or we'll have a real fight.
Why?
Of course
I
I am.
have no idea.
Now, let's go see the horses, said Cor.
I've been hot all
It was a
day.
great and joyous meeting between Bree and Cor. And Bree, who was still in a rather subdued frame of mind, agreed to set out for Amvard at once. He and Gwyn would cross into Narnia on the following day. All four bade an affectionate farewell to the hermit and promised that they would visit him again soon. By about the middle of the morning, they were on their way. The horses had expected that Aravis and Cor would ride, but Cor explained that except in war, where everyone must do what he can do best, no one in Narnia or Arkham ever dreamed of mounting a talking horse. This reminded poor Bree again of how little he knew about Narnian customs and what dreadful mistakes he might make. So while Gwyn strolled along in a happy dream, Bree got more nervous and more self-conscious with every step he took. "Buck up, Bree," said Cor. "It's far worse for me than for you. You aren't going to be educated. You should be learning reading and writing and heraldry and dancing and history and music, while you'll be galloping and rolling on the hills of Narnia to your heart's content." "That's just the point," groaned Bree. "Do talking horses roll? Supposing they don't. I can't bear to give it up. What do you think, Gwyn?" "I'm going to roll anyway," said Gwyn. "I don't suppose any of them will care 2 lumps of sugar whether you roll or not." "Are we near that castle?" said Bree to Cor. "Round the next bend," said the prince. "Well," said Bree, "I'm going to have a good one now. It may be the last. Wait for me a minute." It was 5 minutes before he rose again, blowing hard and covered with bits of bracken. "Now I'm ready," he said in a voice of profound grief. "Lead on, Prince Cor."
Narnia and the North. But he looked more like a horse going to a funeral than a long-lost captive returning to home and freedom. Chapter 15. Rabadash the Ridiculous. The next turn of the road brought them out from among the trees, and there, across green lawns, sheltered from the north wind by the high wooded ridge at its back, they saw the castle of Anvard. It was very old and built of a warm, reddish-brown stone. Before they had reached the gate, King Loon came out to meet them, not looking at all like Aravis's idea of a king, and wearing the oldest of old clothes. For he had just come from making a round of the kennels with his huntsman, and had only stopped for a moment to wash his doggy hands. But the bow with which he greeted Aravis as he took her hand would have been stately enough for an emperor.
Granite.
Lady, he said, bid you very heartily
Welcome
welcome.
to that tower.
My dear wife, who is still
No,
alive,
the mountain.
make you better cheer. Could not do it with a better will.
All the rocks.
And I am sorry that you have had misfortunes and been driven from your father's house, which cannot
All
be
granite.
My son, Paul, has told me about your adventures together in all your manner.
It was he who did all that, sir, said Aravis. Why, he rushed into lion to save me.
Eh?
What's that? Said King Loon, his face brightening. I haven't heard that part of the story. Then Aravis told it. And Cor, who had very much wanted the story to be known, though he felt he couldn't tell it himself, didn't enjoy it so much as he had expected. He felt rather foolish. But his father enjoyed it very much indeed, and in the course of the next few weeks told it to so many people, Cor wished it had never happened. Then the king turned to Wyn and the Bree, and was just as polite to them as to Aravis, and asked them a lot of questions about their families and where they had lived in Narnia before they had been captured. The horses were rather tongue-tied, but they weren't yet used to being talked to as equals by humans, grown-up humans, that is. They didn't mind Aravis and Cor. Presently, Queen Lucy came out from the castle and joined them.
My elbow
King
in the
Luke
way.
said to Aravis, "My dear, there is a lovely friend of our house. She has been seeing your apartment to rights for you better than I could have done. You would like to come and see them, wouldn't you?" said Lucy, kissing Aravis. They liked each other at once, and soon went away together to talk about Aravis's bedroom and Aravis's boudoir, and about picking clothes for her, and all the sort of things girls do on such an occasion. After lunch, which they had on the terrace, it was cold birds and cold game pie and wine and bread and cheese. King Loon ruffled up his brow, heaved a sigh, and said,
We have still that sorry creature Rabadash on our hands, my friends. We must need to resolve what to do with him.
Lucy was sitting on the king's right, and Aravis on the left.